His muscles tense as he reaches his trembling hand toward the surface, trying to crawl his way out of the freezing cold water. The bright light from the sun high above hits his face, tear glistening and mixing with the mass of water around him. His lungs burn, and as every attempt to breathe only draws in more of the liquid, the cold hand of death drags him down. His body starts to go numb, and his mind fills with static from the lack of oxygen. Looking around wildly, he realizes he is alone, trapped in the unforgiving weight of the water. His spark of hope dimming as helplessness takes hold. Panic creeps into his veins as an image of his lover flashed before his eyes. Seeing her soft eyes and sweet smile bring him temporary happiness. Gritting his teeth, he struggled with everything he had, determined to make it back home to her, even though it may be in vain. Darkness begins creeping in from the edge of his vision. He knows his end is near. The only thing he can do is pray to whatever might be listening, hoping for a chance to see her again. Even if only for a moment, he would give everything for that moment. Blinking a few times, he opens his eyes and realizes he's lying in the warm, cozy bed he shares with his lover. Sunlight streams through the window, highlighting her beautiful features, her reddish brown hair reflecting in the warm light of the sun, her hazel eyes full of love as she lies next to him. Lily floods him, tears pouring down his face, and he realizes it was nothing but a nightmare, and his lover is safe beside him. Louisa opens her eyes, seeing her husband's tear-stained face. Reaching out with her soft, delicate hand, she wipes the tears away. Her gaze is full of concern, wondering what could have brought the man in front of her tears to tears. His eyes shine with a sadness she doesn't often see. A nightmare? Louisa asks her husband, searching his face for any sign of distress. Unexpectedly, she finds none sensing concern. She offers her a soft smile. She smiled back in return. Sitting up slowly with a sigh, he told her that they needed to pack their things if they didn't want to be late for the trip. All right, she agreed, chuckling a little at his groggy expression before getting up after him. Well, the bathroom is mine then. You go pack your things. Louisa smirked at her husband before entering the bathroom with her clothes and towel, closing the door. Running his hand through his hair, his muscles were still somewhat tense after the gruesome nightmare he had. He shook the thought away as he walked to the chair close. Opening the door, he stared at his clothes for a few minutes, contemplating which to bring and which to leave behind. By the time he had chosen everything he wanted, he heard the sound of the bathroom door opening. "Your turn now, sleepyhead." Closing his luggage, he walked toward his beautifully dressed wife, giving her forehead a soft peck before entering the bathroom to get himself ready for their vacation while Louisa packed her things. She had been waiting for this trip for so long. The moment Louise agreed, she was unable to stop smiling. She can't wait for their trip to begin. As Luz drove, he turned to her, seeing happiness in her eyes. He knew how long she had been waiting for him to agree, and now that they are heading to their destination, he can't help but ask, "So what do you have in mind?" She distractedly replied, "Huh?" So he asked again, "I mean the trip. Do you have anything specific you want to do?" "How about a boat ride? I have never tried it one before." He smirked at her answer. "I know you would say that, so boat ride it is." Despite the cheerleading tone he used, his smile never reached his eyes. It seemed strange. He noticed his wife gaze steadily. She didn't ask anything about his strange behavior. When they arrived at their hotel room, the tiredness of the day caught up with them. The long car ride and the excitement had left their body exhausted. Also, he thought Luz abandoned his luggage as he stumbled toward the bed, lying down as his eye immediately fell shut. After sleeping for a while, he was awake by the light coming from the dressing table beside their bed, that when he noticed his wife wasn't sleeping beside him. Instead, she seemed to be comparing two beautiful dresses, frowning as she debated which would look better on her. As she noticed his adoring gaze, she held up one of the dresses and asked him, "How do I look?" Her voice was soft and carrying, echoing in the room, despite the only source of light being the soft yellow glow from the dressing table. He took in her beauty like a sailor hypnotized by the song of a siren. "Beautiful as you always are, an unmatched beauty, one that takes my breath away. Am I even able to believe you?" She teased, her smile almost as bright as the sun. You always shower me with compliments and sweet words." So he replied in the same teasing tone, "Really? You wouldn't believe me." Noticing how late it was, he suggested they get some rest so they would be all ready and full of energy tomorrow. Watching as his wife climbed onto the bed, getting under the cover laying next to him, feel the comfort of her touch, he drifted off into peaceful slumber. The sound of birds chirping echoing into their hotel room, the sunshine through their closed curtain window. Luz yawned, waking up from the dreamless night. The spot beside him empty, his wife has already waking up. They spent most of the morning getting ready for their boat trip. As Luz drove, he couldn't shake the strange feeling of familiarity, even though he had never been here before. It was he had gone through this experience 100 times already. A deep sense of dread crept over him as thought something bad was about to happen, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Noticing her husband frown, Louisa couldn't help but worry something was obviously bothering him. But before she could say a word, they had already reached a parking lot. Luz's expression relaxed back into its usual carefree demeanor. He pushed those unsettling feelings to the back of his mind, focusing instead on enjoying something he and his wife had looked forward to. Despite this, the tension in his shoulder remained. They boarded the boat without any issues, since there weren't many people around, but the moment he stepped on, Luz's eyes snapped to one of crew members, a middle-aged man with a dark beard. Judging by his attire, he seemed to be the boat's chef. There was something familiar, but the chef too familiar. Luz stared in disbelief. He was certain he had never met this man before. He had been to this place. The uncomfortable feeling returned, a cold dread creeping up and gripping his rapidly beating heart. His throat tightened as he tried to swallow his nervousness. Aware that something was very wrong, determined not to ruin the trip his wife had been looking forward to, he took a deep, shaky breath, forced a smile, and tried to reassure her with a tight nod as she looked at him with concern. The boat left the dock with a small jolt. Almost everyone on board looked excited except Luz. Sweat trickled down the back of his neck as he clenched and unclenched his fists. Suddenly, a hand rested on his shoulder. Louisa gave him a reassuring smile. "What's wrong?" Her voice was full of concern as she searched his gaze for answer. Letting out a nervous chuckle, he brushed off his wife's worries. "No, it's nothing. Don't worry." That was he said, that the tension in his chest proved that something bad might happen. Suddenly, the boat swayed violently from side to side. A high-pitched screech echoed echoed from the engine room beneath the boat, sending the shiver up loose spin. At first nothing happened, everyone froze in fear of the noise. A tense silence followed, then a loud boom echoing, shaking the boat. Panic erupted among the crew and passengers as one. The engineering team member ran out, screaming bloody murder with his arm on fire. All hell broke loose as chaos ensued. They were in the middle of the river with choppy waves and harsh winds. Luz looked at his wife, seeing her wide panicked eyes. He reached out, grabbing her hand and giving a gentle squeeze. Her gaze snapped to him, searching for any reassurance. They both desperate, needed in this dire situation. Before Luz could say anything, the boat shook again more violently than before. Screams rang out around them as some people chose to flee, while others gripped the railing so tight and their knuckles turned white. Luz and Louisa were among those gripped. The railing. Luz couldn't swim, guilt gnawed at his inside. If it were only his wife, he would have fled already. The boat took one final sway before capsizing sideways, spilling its crew and everyone on board into the freezing cold water. The only warning came from the creaking of the boat and the terrifying scream from others. Then Luz was hit face first into the water. For a brief second he saw a large object falling toward his wife, likely hitting her from the corner of his eyes. The force of the water knocked the air off his lungs. He saw his wife's body hit the surface and begin to sink, leaving a deep trail of red behind her. He wanted to scream, but panic seized him.
Suddenly, it was only him and his wife, slowly sinking deeper and deeper. He felt his lungs burn, his fingers and toes freeze, his heart echoing his head like a drum beating against his skull. Desperate tears burst from his eyes as he watched them sink to their demise. He sprang up from the bed, gasping loudly, his body trembling with fears as sweat and tears clung to his skin. Louisa quickly sat up, alarmed by her husband's sudden movement and his wretched breath. "Hey, what happened?" Her voice carried the soft tone he had heard 1,000 times, calming him each time, but not this time. He looked aloud widely. The dream felt too vivid to be just a nightmare, but all he noticed was that he was in the shared bedroom, the soft yellow glow of the sun streaming in and reflecting off his wife's angelic features. We were going on a boat trip, but then, his voice shook as he spoke, and then he seemed to forget what he was going to say next. He swallowed dryly, trying to recall the gruesome nightmare, but nothing came to him. "You're probably just worrying too much. It's going to be okay." Louisa comforted him, assuring him that nothing would go wrong, but Luke froze at her next words. "You're probably overthinking about the boat trip tomorrow." He didn't know why, but his body tensed up and he felt his heart leap. Louisa, unaware of his thinking expression, "Come on, we need to pack our stuff," she told him before taking her clothes and entering the bathrooms. The day passed in a blur for him. He gripped the wheel so tightly that his hand began to go numb, unable to shake the unsettling feeling building inside him. Staring ahead, the empty road created a trance-like effect, the surroundings seeming to bend and stretch in a strange way. He bit down on his tongue, the metallic taste of blood grounding him. He could almost feel his wife's gas burning into him, her stare intense with concern. Swallowing dryly, he refocused on driving. Suddenly, he heard voices, echoing, like distant conversation, blending with the ringing in his ears. The sight in front of him shifted. Where the empty road had been, there was now a different scene. A line of people, waiting. He caught glimpses of a blurred figure, the static, ringing, growing louder until it was almost deafening. "Luke?" He blinked, finding himself in a hotel lobby with his wife looking at him, her face creased with worry. His heart pounds as if it would burst, his chest tight with a squeezing sensation that made him feel anxious. "Maybe you should go and rest. I will take care of all things," Louisa suggests gently, rubbing his shoulder to ease the tension as they walk to their room. He let her lead him, still shaking and confused about what had happened, while Louisa seemed oblivious to the strangeness he had just experienced. Climbing onto the bed, he lay down, letting sleep take him into a restless night. Morning comes, birds singing the joyful tune as the yellow glow of the sun shines through the window. But instead of excitement, Luke's feel a sinking heaviness in his chest. He can't pinpoint the source of his unease, but he scored at him relentlessly. His wife is already awake, beaming with anticipation. Knowing how much she's looked forward to this trip, he keeps his concern to himself, forces a brave face, and greets her with a strained smile. They wait in line to be checked before boarding a boat. The line is short as few people have booked this trip. Luke's breath hinged at the scene ahead. It's almost exactly like the strange disorienting vision he had in the hotel lobby. Panic surges, and he quickly grabbed his wife's hands, squeezing it tightly. "Something isn't right," he whispered, his voice trembling. Louisa watches him, brown furrowed in worry. She's never seen him like this. "What do you mean?" she asks, concern filling her tone. He tries to explain, though his words tremble out quickly, and her expression shifts to puzzlement. Then suddenly the ground beneath them shifts. He's on the boat, gripping the railing with his wife beside him, smiling as she smiled Riverville. His eyes widen in panic. Wasn't he just in line? How is he already on the boat? Before he can even process it, a deafening explosion thundered around them. The boat launches violently, and some passengers leap overboard, desperate to flee the sinking vessel. Luke hit the water with a loud splash, the icy cold almost knocking the breath out of him. Seeing his wife's body sinking slowly beneath the surface sent a new wave of terror through him, his panic rising as he struggled against the water grip. The cold water seeped into his nose and lungs as he choked, a gurgling sound echoing in his head. Breath ripped from him, a burning sensation flooded his chest. His head throbbed as though split open, pressure building behind his eyes, pressing outward as if something is pushing from within his socket. The water stung his vision, tears blending with the frigid darkness around him. Unable to fight the unbearable pain, he closes his eyes and surrenders to the blackness. Suddenly, his eyes snap open in panic, hand clenching his throat. He gasps desperately for air. Gradually, his panic fades to confusion as he realizes he's lying in a cozy bed with his wife beside him. "Morning," Louisa murmurs sleepily, smiling. Luke stares at her, his pounding heart slowly calming, though his head still aches. With a sigh, he closes his eye, feeling a brief moment of relief. A steady beeping sound pulled him from his thoughts. He opened his eyes to the bright hospital ceiling, blinking against the light. Glancing to the side, he noticed a heart monitor beside him. Its relentless beeping sinks to his heartbeat. Tubes run from his chest and arm, tethering him to the bed. The pain in his body flares as he groans, trying to move. The door swung open as doctors and nurses rushed in. Alert by his awakening, they began checking his injuries and performing various tests he is too weak to understand, a heavy dizziness clouding his mind. A week passed. He has been told about the unfortunate boat accident. His worry never increased a bit, as people always changing the topic or avoid him altogether when he asked them about his wife. One day, the police entered his hospital room, their expression solemn as they sit beside his bed. "We regret to inform you of your wife passing," one of them said quietly. Luke's eyes widened. His suspicions confirmed. He did feel something was wrong, noticing how everyone had avoided the topic, treating him as if he were made of glass. Numbly, he followed the instruction, answering questions, signing papers, his emotion due, as though by a heavy blanket. There is despair and sadness echoing inside him, but he is unable to express any of it. He sits in his dreary hospital bed, picking at his thumb until it bleeds. By evening, the reality finally settled in. Luke wept for his lost wife, the future they had planned together now gone. He sees her bright, reddish brown hair glittering in the sunlight, feels the warmth of her touch, hears her gentle voice, all memories slipping further and further from reach. The family they had dreamed of, the shared laughter, her caring gaze, these are things he will never experience again. Endless tears poured from his eyes as he sobbed into a quiet and forgiving darkness of his room, mourning the one true love he had promised his life to, now lost forever.